My voice is a little bit shot. My cousin and I were doing a comedy show last night, and I was voicing four members of a family, the Tiffany family. And the mother's name was Tiffany, and the father's name was also Tiffany, and the daughters were also named Tiffany. And then there was another family where the matriarch was 90 years old, and she'd been obsessed with this comedian since her young ages in the 30s. And so I had a lot of versatile use of my vocal cords on my compounding illness, and I have maybe injured myself just a wee bit in my trachea. Is that the vocal cord? Jamie, is that the vocal cord? Anyway, I want to talk about dating. I want to talk about dating when you're gay. Not always a fun thing. Not a fun thing for many reasons. I think the hardest and most important reason of that is that men generally are disappointing, and men suck. And I know that's like a cliche. That's the thing a lot of people say, and I've heard a lot of my female friends say that. But I think that what that kind of boils down to is that a lot of guys, and it's because of, how we are evolutionarily built and raised and all the societal factors, but we're just like sex monsters and have such a value on physical looks and sexual interaction, and so many people don't even appreciate, I don't think, the value of a meaningful partnership connection with somebody. And I've always been a person who's pined for that. Always sought, that meaningful, interdependent, connection where I'm helping you and you're helping me and we're working towards our goals together. That's what I want. I don't want a situationship. I don't want to go through talking stages. I don't want to wonder, oh, is this person going to ghost me? I just want to love somebody. And I think that kind of boils down to it a lot for me, is I want to be a person who's loving somebody, and it's nice to receive that love back too, but I want to be somebody people can trust and that one person chooses. I don't think that's a crazy thing to want. I think a lot of people probably want that deep down. I think it's a normal thing to want. So then, why is dating so hard? I think a lot of it has to come down to, well, there's a few things. I think dating apps have some strengths. If you meet someone and you see what they post and you see their pictures, you're just like, whoa, this person seems perfect for me. That's great. That's great. That could turn out really nice, and you could go on a few dates and maybe it'll turn into something better. But I think the ugly side of dating apps, and listen to my voice. Imagine I did one of the voice prompts. If I was... Anyway. I hope my voice feels better soon. But for example, I was on Hinge, and I met somebody there, and we've been on 2 dates, and it's going pretty well. That's cool, right? That's cool when it happens. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when that doesn't work out well, right? When it's like the 99% of the time when you're just trying to find that connection and everybody seems so shallow, so uninterested in conversation, at least in my experience. I always want to ask questions. I'm always so curious about people. And I don't find that I always get that reciprocated to me. And then that's when, for me as a person, I start, more and more trying to draw things out of them because I'm like, oh, I just push a little harder. No. Some people are just a little vapid. That's hard for me to accept. I just think some people are just vapid. And I don't think a lot of people are very in touch with their emotions in the same sort of dialogue I have with myself. I speak with myself a lot. I try to keep track of how I feel every day. Try to identify emotions when I have them, identify triggers when they come about. Try to self-regulate and, act in accordance with my own values and who I am and how I want to present myself. And obviously, I'm not perfect. I have times where I'm really anxious and I say something silly or I get a little shy. I have things like that happen, and I don't like that happens, but it happens, and, it's human, part of being human. All you can do is identify those things and say, okay, maybe I have some flaws. Maybe I have some flaws. These are things I can identify and work on and try to keep, moving forward with. Identifying your flaws is really important. Really important. And I think that there becomes sort of a tension when you feel like you've identified someone's flaws and you don't think they have. Or conversely, when you feel unable to identify your own flaws, unable to, and moreover than that, willing to look in yourself and really try and dig down and figure out what's going on in there. It's important. It's easy when you're in the honeymoon stage of talking to somebody and you're like, this is so great, this is so amazing, and la-di-da-di-da-di-da, we're going to talk on the phone and it's all going to be great. But then you get to the point where it's like, oh, this is my experience. You get to the point where it's like, oh, there's some sort of deeper context here that we really haven't established because we've just been so enamored with the prospect of each other that we kind of forgot to learn who each other were. I'm not sure if that makes a ton of sense. But I guess to rephrase, I think that when you're dating, it's really easy to form this idea of who this other person is, of the potential you see in them, of the potential you see in a relationship with them, and to let that kind of override your basic instinct, your basic thought process. I look back on guys that I entertained romantically, and then I write a laundry list of the red flags they had. And I'm like, what was I doing? But in the moment, what is there to lose? Why not, right? Why not throw it all to the wind and see what happens and throw a dart? But then you're not an emotionless monster. Nobody's an emotionless monster. And eventually you're going to get hurt. Especially if you go after people who are emotionally unavailable. You're going to get hurt. There's nothing wrong with them as people, but if somebody isn't willing to have conversations about how they feel, or hear you out, or have meaningful dialogue, or if you don't feel comfortable with that, it's not conducive to long term, because then those things are going to build and build and build, and it's going to cause resentment, and it could cause, strife between the people. And if you do have a relationship and you don't really have a lot of problems and everything's working out great and you're just happy, that's amazing, right? It's really amazing when that happens. But I don't know. It's really interesting to think about how important it is to establish boundaries in a certain way. I don't always do that. I think it comes from a place of not wanting to push someone away, but by being overly eager and perhaps overly thoughtful about a person, especially in the early parts of a relationship, you can end up fizzling something. Somebody used an analogy of a candle once for this. You have a candle, it's very dim right now, and it's starting at the top, and you just gotta slowly watch it burn. You can't rush these things. Unless both people want to rush it, then great, but be careful. I met a man once who kind of completely flipped my world on its head. There's a whole story to this, but the gist of it is I caught feelings for him, and we had agreed not to do that. But I was so desperate for sort of that connection, and I was like, okay, whatever, in my head. I was like, whatever, this is a person I can spend time with and cuddle and do everything except for date. How could that go wrong? Well, it goes wrong when, at least for me, when the exclusivity you presumed was there is not upheld. And I don't resent the person I'm talking about. In fact, I actually wish him the best. Of all the men I've been with, he's the one I have the most respect for right now. Maybe that's a crazy thing to say, but I find myself going back to his advice, his thoughts. He's a very wise person, I think. And even though we didn't work out in any sort of romantic way and had some pretty ugly moments between us, we talked it out. He sat me down and we had some really tough conversations, and I wasn't really emotionally mature enough for the sort of work I needed to do for myself. But he spurred those conversations, and we talked things out, and I really believe that's why I'm in a place where I don't harbor ill will towards him, because he made it a mature conversation between us. So I guess the gist of that story is I think you need to know what you are looking for, and you need to know how much you're willing to compromise for it. For me, in that situation, I caught feelings for somebody, and after it was clear to me that he didn't want a relationship, just wanted to have fun, I still entertained him, even though I knew deep down I wasn't interested in that. I wanted a relationship. That was a betrayal of myself, That's why those things don't feel so good when they happen. Not because you feel, in the moment I felt betrayed by him, when I realized that I wasn't the only person he wanted to see. But I realized, with time, that the real pain was my onus, Granted, of course, objectively, you're with somebody in one capacity, then there was someone else that's always going to have some ugly emotions attached to it. But I didn't do the work to get over it and heal and move on. I just lingered in it. I just lingered in spite, and so unhealthy. But I think if anything that whole experience taught me is that you need to be very cognizant of the people you pursue romantically and where you let your heart go. Your heart's a very special thing. You're very special. Don't change yourself to try and make someone else like you. It'll make them like you less. You gotta be authentic. I've never been perfect at that. Still not perfect at that. I'm trying to do better. That's all you can do. I think the most important part of dating is loving yourself. I think my relationship with my ex really showed me that. We loved each other a lot. But I think we both loved each other more than we loved ourselves. And it's a really dangerous predicament. Because it feels so good to love somebody and give them all that love, and that helps boost your ego, but what happens when your love for the other person starts to fade? Then who are you? The breakup with my ex was a really shocking thing for me. It was really out of left field for me, actually. But again, with time, now that I look back on it, it wasn't out of left field. I could have felt him pulling away, I recognized things and I swept them under the rug because I said, no, not him. He wouldn't do that to me. But he's not doing it to me. Something happened that caused him to change his mind about what he wanted from us. Maybe reality hit him like a cold block of ice in the head. We had a very unique relationship. We were long distance. My family knew, his family didn't. His family couldn't. And I would drive to see him. It was not a short distance. I would sleep in my car so I could see him. That's how much I loved him. And some beautiful, beautiful memories together. But I sacrificed so much. I had no boundaries. It was all about him and making him. It was always, for me, was about doing things that would make him like me and make me a good partner for him. And what about Alex? What happened to Alex? It was some moments in that relationship that were really healthy. There were other moments that could have dealt with better. I think for me, that relationship in some ways was a bit built on a dream. An achievable dream, but a dream that wasn't the reality we lived in. And I think that my ex woke up from that dream, and it had been a place I was in for a while. I knew that we would face some challenges in the future being long distance. But I think he woke up to it, and I think it scared him. I think there were other factors too. I think that his feelings for me waned when we met, we were very, very intimate, very, very obsessed with one another. It was an amazing feeling, but that fades. The honeymoon phase fades, and you grow accustomed to living with one another, and you grow accustomed to one another's lives, and that's normal. And you get used to one another, and you get used to being there to support one another, but I think I just wasn't exciting for him anymore. And I know that was a mistake on his part. But then on the flip side, if he really didn't feel the way for me that he had before, shouldn't I be glad he's gone? Because why would I want to be with somebody who didn't like me that much? It's a cruel dichotomy in some ways. To understand the heart and what it wants, and also the brain and the soul and what goes on outside the heart, and the world we live in exists peripherally to what we feel and what we feel towards our partners or our potential partners or whatever we want. But we have to remember that we exist in this plane, and that our partner isn't just our partner. They're a human. They're a human who could at any moment decide, I don't want this anymore. So you have to find people you really trust. But you also have to be somebody that people can really trust. You have to take care of yourself and be reliable for yourself and be authentic. And not just authentic around other people, being authentic by yourself too. The first boy I was ever with in any sort of way, I was 19 and he was 18. It was my sophomore year of college and he was a freshman, and he'd only been there about a month or so. And we met on Tinder. And everybody told me he looked exactly like me. He's the same height as me, same color eyes, pretty much the same color hair. Skinny guy, white, you know. And we had this little fling. And I caught feelings for him so fast. I'd never felt what I felt with him before. I deeply loved the girl that I dated in high school, but I never felt what I felt with this gentleman. I know gentleman might be a bit too much, but for now we're gonna call him gentleman. And my heart and my brain were on fire with lust and love and passion and obsession, and I had no regulation of it because I'm in love and the world should know. And about 2 weeks later, I'm heartbroken and the world will know. I fell for him too fast. And he didn't want a relationship. That's what he told me. And isn't that such a hard thing to hear when you invest so much in someone? Hear them say, I don't want a relationship, when it's all you've ever thought about. Sucks. Sucks to hear. Sucks to hear because we all know that it doesn't always mean what people think it means. But how can you spite someone for that? At least with this gentleman, he sat me down on the bench and we'd had our fun, and he sat me down on a bench and he said, I just don't want a relationship right now. You're a really sweet guy. And he said maybe you'd be open to something in the future, but not right now. And I sat there, I was kind of stunned. I was like, And I'd love to say I got over that. I didn't for like a year. For like a year, I was upset about that. Literally. I'd see him around campus and it would all come rushing back. And again, that wasn't his fault. That's, I think, one of the biggest problems with the way we date and the way we treat each other. It wasn't his fault. He did break up with me, yeah. We weren't dating. I had invested so much into him and my idea of him that he probably hadn't invested. He was just with a guy he thought was fun to hang out with. And you can't resent people for wanting different things. I do resent the fact I thought there could be a relationship there. But he had told me from the outset he wasn't sure what he wanted. I had said the same thing. But about a week into us talking, we were cuddling on my bed, and I said to him, I love you, and it kind of just came out. And when I think back on that, I don't know if I really meant to say that to him or to me. Because loving and affection and all of those things just come so naturally to me. It came so naturally to me when I was with him. I never really kissed anyone before I met him. Later on, when I met my ex, he'd say that I was too forceful of a kisser. And that was what the other gentleman liked from way back when, and he had told me I was doing great, which is hilarious. But, I think this kind of gets to another part of my whole shebang, which is I've never been a person who's desired hookup. I've never wanted that. Even if I've been with people who that kind of resembled what we would do, I've never wanted that. I've never felt like that would be fulfilling to me, because I want love. But I think that fact that I haven't had that experience of it, almost like that shared trauma in a way of like hooking up with people who are insane and weirdos. Like, I'm missing some aspect of like gay culture from that. And I feel it when I talk to other gay men. I don't know that I feel I'm missing out. I don't feel I want to have that experience, but there's definitely an element of, I don't know. There's definitely an element of like being aware that thing, that hookup be sort of late night booty call sort of vibe never was for me, and never was me. And it's almost like a learning curve, because I think that I miss signals sometimes. I miss hints, and I think it's because I just don't have that much experience there. Again, I'm glad I can count on one hand the number of men I've been in a bed with. Can I? Two hands. Anyway. Whoa. So, dating is tough. Dating is tough. But I really think it comes down to knowing what you want, loving who you are, and having fun. trying to have fun, whatever comes your way and however it comes your way. Also respecting yourself enough to know when it's time to walk away from something that just isn't working out, no matter how cool the person you're talking to may seem. Because the longer you stay with someone where the things isn't working out and the vibe's maybe not there, the more it's gonna hurt when you finally break up with them. And like I said